What's going on, Guardians? It's Tizzle here, and in this video I have a really fun build to show you. I've been messing around with this build ever since the mod changes and Lightfall dropped, and it's a ton of fun. And this season, the exotic that it centers around was buffed, so it is now better than ever. It is more geared towards seasonal activities than it is Grandmasters, but it can still hold up pretty well in high-end content if you play the right way. I did a Scarlet Keep GM with it, and I was pretty impressed. You just have to be a little more careful. That being said, I was still able to crush through a Legend Lost sector in under 3 minutes with it, so if Void Burn is on, then this build can actually go very hard. Is it a top meta build? No, but it is a lot of fun to use. So let's get into it. This build centers around the exotic Doomfang Pauldron. I've always loved this exotic. It's an OG to Destiny 2, having launched with the game way back in 2017. However, it's definitely been power crept out of relevance. With the insane ability spam builds we can make now, there is no reason to run an exotic that buffs an ad clear super when our grenades can do the ad clear better than a super can. But as I mentioned, this exotic was buffed this season to allow it to make your void weapons deal more damage on top of its old functionality. So let's look at it. It has the armor perk Horns of Doom. Defeating targets with void damage has a chance to grant an escalating bonus to damage with void weapons. Defeating targets with void melee grants super energy. While Sentinel Shield is active, defeating targets with melee attacks recharges Shield Throw, which extends your super on hitting a target. So let's break the exotic down bit by bit. First, with the new rework it got. The Destiny Data Compendium says scoring 2 to 3 void kills within 10 seconds of each grants 1 times void weapon surge for 11 seconds. Void kills while at ×4 weapon surge refresh the buff duration. Additionally, 1 charge melee kill will take you right to a ×4 void weapon boost. If you see ×5 weapon boost in the background gameplay, that is thanks to Monochromatic Maestro, which we will touch on later. And one thing to note, a regular melee with the Bastion Overshield does not proc the ×4 buff. I just wanted to point that out in case you were curious. It has to be a charged melee. So essentially, that is the new rework on Doomfangs, that it can give a ×4 void weapon boost without having to run surges. The rest of the functionality remains the same as it always was. Defeating targets with your void melee grants super energy. The Destiny Data Compendium says this is 20% super energy, which is quite significant, and we can bump that number up even further with some mods. This allows us to get our super extremely quickly, as you can imagine. Obviously, we are using the Sentinel Shield super, and then when we have the super up, we can do some insane ad clear. That is because our throwing shield, while in super, will give us 10% super energy return per hit. So as long as there are ads around to bounce our shield off of, we can stay in our super pretty much indefinitely. It's a ton of fun. So the essence of the build is basically get as many melee kills as we can for a quick super, and then use our super to take out as many ads as possible. The super is not great for single target damage, and getting kills with the shield bash will refund your throwing shield so you can keep bouncing it off enemies. So you really do want to focus on clearing ads with it. It's an absolutely wonderful ad clear super, and it can last a really long time. Again, I know this is not really needed seeing as we have been power crept like crazy, but believe me, it is a ton of fun. Every time you pop a super, it's like a little mini game of trying to make your super last as long as you can. It's awesome. So before we get into how to lower our melee cooldown a bunch so that we can spam our shield bash to give us pretty much infinite supers, let's look at the aspects. First, we have Offensive Bulwark. While you have an Overshield or inside Ward of Dawn, your grenade charges significantly faster, you have increased melee range and damage, and melee final blows extend the duration of your Overshield. And it doesn't state it here, but this also gives you an extra shield for your Sentinel Shield super, which is obviously very helpful. This will double our melee damage, which is good for allowing our Shield Bash to deal more damage to higher health targets or tankier enemies in higher level activities. And the grenade regen rate it gives you is 400% more than base grenade recharge, so that is quite significant. Also, your unpowered melee hits sort of count as charged melee hits. They won't give you the huge super bonus that Shield Bash does with Doomfangs on, but they do make orbs from heavy-handed and count as void kills to proc our void weapon damage bonus. And for the other aspect, we have Bastion. Cast your super to grant Overshield to nearby allies. Casting your Barricade grants Overshield to yourself and nearby allies and empowers it, enabling it to slowly regenerate the Overshield of allies bunkering behind it and extending their Overshield duration. So the main reason we want Bastion is for the aforementioned bonuses that an Overshield provides when we run Offensive Bulwark. This just helps reduce our ability cooldowns even further. So now let's look at the fragments, because some of these can further boost our super energy gain. We have Echo of Exchange, where melee final blows grant grenade energy. This just helps us feed our ability loop so that we always have a grenade or melee at our disposal. Next, we have Echo of Expulsion, because we are getting lots of melee and grenade kills, so this will just cause them to explode when we get an ability kill for a little extra damage and add clear. It also gives us 10 more intellect, which we definitely like. Echo of Starvation, where picking up a Void Breach or an Orb of Power grants Devour. This is extremely important because this build is very aggro, so we do need a way to heal. So every time we get a kill when Devour is active, we'll get our health fully restored. Also, it doesn't mention it in the description, but kills while Devour is active give us grenade energy back, which is massive. It's just another way to further reduce our grenade cooldown. Seriously, this build gets hella grenades. And then the last fragment is Echo of Reprisal. Final blows while surrounded by combatants grants super energy. Again, this build is always in the fray since we are shield bashing everything, so this will just help us get even more super energy. So as you can see, this build is all about spamming our abilities to help us get our super quickly, and then we can use the super and rinse and repeat. In a 3-minute loss sector, I was able to easily get 2 supers. That is some pretty crazy cooldowns. So now that we know the framework for the build, let's look at the mods that make this build even more broken. On the helmet, we have Void Siphon, which could also be Harmonic Siphon since we are on a Void subclass and want to be running Void weapons to take advantage of the Void weapon boost. Then we have Hands On and Ashes to Assets. These just give us even more super energy for grenade and melee kills. On the gloves, we have Momentum Transfer for melee energy back when we deal damage with a grenade, and Impact Induction to reduce our grenade cooldown when we deal damage with a melee. So these just feed back into that ability loop. And then we have Heavy Handed for an orb when we get a melee kill. This is really important for getting the whole ability loop going, because when we get that first melee kill, it will allow us to proc Devour when we pick up that orb so that we can stay alive and keep the ability loop going. On the chest, run whatever resistance you need for the activity, but I also like to run one charged up mod for our class item mod that I will get to. This allows us to hold 4 armor charges instead of 3. On the boots, 1 stacks on stacks so that every orb we pick up grants us 2 charges instead of 1. And then Innervation and Invigoration for more grenade and melee energy when we pick up orbs of power. You could also run Absolution here instead, which gives ability energy back to all your abilities when you pick up an orb. It's your choice. And then lastly on the class item, we have Bomber and Outreach for grenade and melee energy when we put down our barricade, and then 1-2 Finisher, which gives us our melee when we get a finisher when we have at least 3 stacks of Charge with Light. It doesn't always fully refund it with 3 charges however, so that is why I like to run Charged Up and Stacks on Stacks, meaning we can get 4 charges instead in just 2 orbs, which pretty much always gives us our full melee back when we do a finisher. In lower end content, this is wonderful as you can spam your melees pretty much back to back, which means we can get our super in less than a minute. You just need to get a melee kill, get 2 orbs, do a finisher, get another melee kill, rinse and repeat. In higher end content, it is a little more difficult to pull this off as it is not always safe to go for a finish whenever you feel like it. Onto artifact mods, we have Void Orbs obviously since we are rocking Void weapons, Elemental Fury to do more damage with orbs and abilities on stun champions. This is great for our Vortex grenades especially. Refreshing pickups to help with our ability cooldowns, Semi-Auto Striker because it is easy for getting stacks of armor charge if you are running a bow, sniper, or scout, Rapid Fire Ranger for debuffing targets, and Monochromatic Maestro to buff our abilities and our weapons by 10%. This works amazingly well with this build especially since it is all about ability spam and using our Void weapons. And speaking of weapons, obviously it depends on the content that we're running if it has champions in it or not, but here are a few that I really love this season. Fatebringer with Osmosis is awesome because it can take advantage of the Void weapon surge, so any Osmosis weapon in the kinetic slot is really nice. For a special, I like Nessa's Oblation. It is a Void Slug shotgun and it's great for dealing with high health targets. Mine has Envious Assassin so I never have to reload it, and Frenzy for a 15% bonus to weapon damage on top of the 25% from 4 times Void Surge thanks to Doomfangs. And the best weapon of all is Commemoration with Reconstruction and Killing Tally. At times 3 Killing Tally, you get a 30% damage buff that doesn't go away, so long as you don't stow your weapon. And as you are getting kills with your machine gun, you are getting Void Weapon Surge thanks to Doomfang Pauldrons. This causes your machine gun to absolutely wreck. The damage it does is insane. It's such a good weapon to pair with this build. Additionally, Leviathan's Breath is already a monster, and with Rapid Fire Ranger allowing it to debuff enemies, plus a ×4 Void Weapon Surge, it can deal some crazy damage. Not to mention Monochromatic Maestro for even more damage. With the 15% weaken, 25% Void Surge at max stacks, and 10% from Maestro, you're looking at 58% more damage. That is just crazy. And one more perfect exotic to pair with this build is the exotic Monte Carlo, because it can give you a ton of melee energy back, which is just another great failsafe to have in case you lose your ability regen loop. The last part of the build is the stats, and you want as close to 100 in discipline and strength as you can get, and obviously 100 resilience for the damage resistance. Again, this build is all about using your abilities, so try to get the cooldowns as short as possible. One thing I do want to mention is the shield throw in the super is quite weak in Grandmasters, as it can't even kill Acolytes with Void Surge on. So that was pretty disappointing. But aside from that, this build is actually pretty good. It's a lot of fun to use something different, and the amount of supers you can get and the length that you can stay in your super is pretty much second to none. So give it a try, especially in some lower tier content. Anyways, that is going to do it for me. I hope you liked the video, and if you did, then leaving a like would be greatly appreciated. I really like trying to make underused exotics shine. It's a lot of fun. I hope Bungie keeps buffing old unused exotics to make them more viable. If you want to see more fun and powerful builds, then consider subscribing. Lastly, if you made it this far, then thanks so much for watching to the end. Happy super spamming and take care.